Welcome to the SportsBros podcast, featuring the almighty B-Live, the money man, Scottie D, and your host, the head of creative, Eddy Kool. And without any further ado, here they are, the SportsBros. Hey, what's going on, world? This be your boy, Eddy Kool, and welcome to episode 37 of the SportsBros podcast. Yeah, man, crazy, man. We started this thing back in March. 37 episodes later, we still here. Booming, kicking, alive, breathing, and talking about sports. That's what we do. We talk about sports. Right now, I got my co-host with me, the money man, Scottie D. What's going on, Scottie?
Well, happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. This is always a fun time of year as we coming down the stretch of the NFL season, coming into the rivalry weekend, college football, before we get into conference championships leading into the bowls. So this is a fun time for sports, man. And I just want to wish you personally happy Thanksgiving there, Mr. Kool.
Hey, man. Thanks, man. Appreciate that, Scottie D. Happy Turkey Day and Thanksgiving to you, too, as well, man. The almighty B-Live, he can't be with us right now because he got to do that thing called work. Go get that bag, B-Live. Ain't nobody mad at you. You got to do what you got to do to make things happen. So you get a treat. You get the money man and the H.O.C. Eddy Kool on an extra-packed episode of the SportsBros podcast. And let's not BS no more longer, my sports brethren. Let's go ahead and talk about the week that was in the NFL, the Week 12 recap. A lot of important games on the schedule, so we're going to start. Let's run down these scores. All right, we got the Seattle Seahawks defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 17-9. The Saints won out against the Carolina Panthers 34-31. The Bills defeat the Broncos 20-3. Newsflash, the Bills are 8-3. Yeah, the Buffalo Bills are 8-3. I think they go to the playoffs. Then we have the Bears defeating the Giants 19-14. The Titans just rolling all up and down the Jacksonville Jaguars 42-20. Ooh. Yeah. And Derrick Henry, I forgot what he had a big game as well too. Yeah, I got him on my fantasy team in my other league. Then we have the Patriots and the Cowboys, kind of a low-scoring affair, 13-9, kind of similar to the Super Bowl almost. And the 49ers and Green Bay Sunday night, the 49ers solidifying their cases. Hey, we here now. We the real deal. You want to talk about everybody else in the NFC, but you can't forget about us. As they defeat the Green Bay Packers 37-8. Scottie D, I know that you want to talk about the matchup between the Patriots and the Cowboys. What you got for us?
I got more anger, angst, sadness, frustration, all that noise. I mean, realistically, you had to believe going up to Foxborough, the Cowboys were not going to come away with the win. I mean, it's New England at home. It's, playoff drive time. They're the better team. On Sunday, watching that game, it became evident to me that the Patriots are not that much of a better team than the Cowboys. In fact, they might not be at all, but they are obviously well better coached than the Cowboys. I mean, that was so apparent. It just absolutely jumped off the screen at us that the coaching was very superior. And after the game, Jerry Jones expressed that how frustrated he is, that he expected better of this team, something to that effect, something stupid Jerry-ish, some Jerry drivel. What angered me was that he said that he's frustrated, and I'm like, well, where have you been, dude? I mean, this is the same coach you've had for 9 years. I've been frustrated a long time ago. Back in 2011, 12, and 13, the Cowboys, on the final day of the season, their last game was an NFC East opponent. In this order, it was the Giants, Redskins, and Eagles. I think it was that order. Unimportant. Either way, if they win any of those games, they would have won the division with a 9-7 record. That's all they would have had to do is be 9-7 to win their division by winning either of those games. So essentially, those were playoff games, and they lost all three. And if you go back and you read some of what was going on at that time, you're hearing about um, teams being not prepared, poor clock management, questionable coaching decisions. It's the same regime in 2019. You had situations on Sunday. The special teams especially looked absolutely lost. I mean, we had multiple times this year we were questioning play calls. On Sunday, the Cowboys needed a touchdown at the very worst to tie, and with just a few minutes left in the game, they settled for a field goal on 4th and 7. I was kind of back and forth on that decision. You kick the field goal, get the ball back, you win with a touchdown. But either way, you're going to have to score a touchdown. So there's a lot of second guessing about that. But it's just a team that you can just see is not prepared week in and week out. They take on the personality of the coach. They're not running through walls for this guy. I mean, and to hear Jerry Jones just now saying he's frustrated, that's frustrating to me because he's squandered year after year after year with the same coaching regime. And when I watch the game, I see the talent level on the field for the Cowboys. When you stack it up against the Patriots, they're right there. It's not like this Cowboy team is that far off. They've actually accumulated, talent-wise, one of the best teams they've had in a long time, and they're just not doing enough with it. Now, when I watch the game, the Cowboys score 3 field goals. You don't often win a game when you don't score a touchdown. However, just to address what happened at the end of the game there, the Cowboys put themselves in a position where they had an opportunity to come down the field and win the game with a touchdown. They converted a 3rd and 1, and they were on the move, and made one of the worst calls I've ever seen was made. I don't know if you saw this, Eddie, but they called a trip on the Cowboys lineman.
Oh,
a tripping penalty that ended up moving them back to a 3rd and 11. They were unable to convert. And again, I'm not telling anyone that was why the Cowboys lost the game, but you really hate seeing a referee take an opportunity from you, and that's exactly what they did in that situation. Early in the game, they called a trip on the Cowboys on Tyron Smith, and replay shows he didn't come close to tripping a guy. And on the second tripping call, they didn't come close to tripping a guy. It was 2 calls that were absolutely atrocious. The first one set up a blocked punt that the Patriots would score off of, and the second one canceled out a first down that was desperately needed. And I hate harping on officials, and I've done it more this year than ever in my life. But these guys, I'd like to know how you justify some of what you make, these calls you make, when you're not held accountable. If you're a player and you do something wrong, you get a penalty flag or you get a fine. But is there any accountability with the officiating? Because that's awful that they took that opportunity away from the Cowboys. And again, I'm not saying the Cowboys were going to win that game. There's a possibility they fumble the next play or throw a pick or stall out on the goal line. But you don't get the opportunity because of an absolutely atrocious call. And that left a really, really sour taste in my mouth. And I'm not one of these guys that harp on the Patriots cheating thing. That's something that's old news, and that was overblown and overhyped. But you hear people saying, "Well, it's just another call for the Patriots." I'm not saying it's because it was the Patriots, but I'm saying that was a tremendously awful call, and I hate that it took away the opportunity to see. I wanted to see what Dak was going to do in that situation, running that 2-minute drill. They had 3 timeouts. They were at the 2-minute warning. There was plenty of time for them to get down the field and possibly score a touchdown and pull off that upset, and it was taken away by something that was blatantly terrible by the officiating. And I having said all that, I think I'm in a bad mood now, Eddy Kool.
I'm thinking, I'm like, man, you were pretty spirited and pretty spry and, bright out and bushy-tailed when you first started the show, but I guess the more you thought about it, the more it made you mad.
I'm mad at Jerry Jones. I'm mad at the officials. I'm more mad that we lost to the Jets than I am to the Patriots, to be quite honest with you, because that's the game that's haunting them right now. But we've been crying about officiating. I'm not the only guy. Everyone that's watching football is mad at officiating this year. But that was blatantly terrible. You're calling a tripping guy because the guy's blocking. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't the legs hanging off of hips? I mean, where are you going to put them?
Yeah,
they're there. Are you supposed to tuck your legs? What are you supposed to do? I mean, it's awful officiating, and it hurt the Cowboys twice yesterday. Again, I'm not telling you that's why they lost the game. I'm just saying it did really affect their opportunity towards the end, though.
Yeah, it really stinks, man, when officiating starts deciding games, and you can tell like how much of an effect it has on the outcome as far as like what come on, like it's like, like, okay, the game's in reach, and then a call here and a call there can just topsy-turvy the whole doggone aspect of the game and sully the whole outcome.
Yeah.
And that's never fun when it comes to that.
Absolutely. Because the game was still winnable for the Cowboys. And again, I'm not saying that they were I'm not going to say, like a lot of fans, we were going to come down and score a touchdown, because they hadn't done it all game. But the opportunity was there, so we don't know what was going to happen. I feel cheated in that aspect, that I didn't get to see what would have taken place. And on the next play, or 2 plays later, however, went on 4th and 11, Amari Cooper dropped the ball that would have been a first down, and that could have erased all that. So again, the Cowboys, they deserved to lose the game, but I would have liked to have seen that opportunity come to fruition, just see what they would have done.
Scottie D, that's completely understandable. And looking at the NFC East standings, we got the Cowboys sitting on top of it. It's like this. It's theirs to lose. The Eagles don't even look as good as you do. It's just a 2-team race. The Giants are done. The Redskins are done. It's as hey, man, it might come down to typical, NFC East fashion. Last game of the season. But if the Cowboys can right the ship in these next few games, they may not have to have any help from anybody else. So we'll see, man. Because I remember before the game, like, the hype leading up to the game, I remember reading. Well, I just kind of glanced at something about, I guess Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones had a meeting as he was searching for a coach. And Bill was like, hey, Jerry, I can coach. Hey, Jerry, I can coach. And Jerry was like, no. I can't coach. He was like, oh, okay. And I'm pretty sure he's kicking himself in his ass for that now, knowing what we know now.
Well, it's easy to say that, but I'm sure Jerry Jones, somehow his ego would have run Belichick off. He'd have been long gone from Dallas. It's not like, Robert Kraft has pretty much let Belichick do his thing. Jerry Jones ain't like that. You're not listening to the Robert Kraft show and watching Robert Kraft with microphones surrounding him after every game. Jerry Jones is a guy who loves the spotlight, and his ego is really been to the detriment of the Cowboys organization. Robert Kraft has allowed Belichick to run his own ship pretty much, and that wouldn't have happened in Dallas. I'm sure Belichick would have got run off long ago.
Yeah, because we probably came out like, look, you either you're gonna let me coach or I'm gonna get the hell on. You can't, like, as an owner and as a general manager, I feel that your say is important, but if you hire football people to make football moves, let them do the damn job. All right, stay the hell out the way and only intervene when it's necessary. It's just like people that just, how you know those people, and you got to be hands, like just like that one manager at work. You're doing your job, but he's over here doing this, and trying to be your mix. This on your mix. But then when somebody finally say something to him, now you got an attitude. No, back that ass up. Let me work. Let me do my job. Just move. Because people don't like being crowded. I don't. People don't like being crowded, and I guess the same thing can be said for a job like mine, and also it can be said for a job in the NFL. Hey, man, you got to back up and move and let me do my job. I mean, the Cowboys is a storied franchise, but Scottie D, you know as well as I do, for the past few years, it's been the butt of everybody's jokes.
Well, it's been more than a few years, Eddie. It's been 25 years, and that's a big chunk of history. I mean, you may go 5 or 10 years here and there, all organizations where you've underachieved or you've had to rebuild and the rebuild didn't work and you have to start over. But with the Cowboys, the bottom line has been that Jerry Jones has been the one in charge. He's been the general manager, and he won't fire the general manager as the owner, and that's what's unfortunate. And as a Cowboy fan, I feel like Jerry Jones squandered opportunities with Tony Romo and DeMarcus Ware and Jason Witten. He had some very, very good players on his team through the years. I mean, he blindly struck gold with Romo. A lot of people give Romo crap, but Romo, he was a guy that didn't get drafted. I actually talked about this last week, and was a very high level NFL quarterback. But Jerry Jones never put any high level NFL personnel in place on the coaching staff or administration to help get that team to the next level, and that's where they're at right now. And based on his comments after the game Sunday night, Jason Garrett's days are numbered. I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard Jerry really be that publicly, blatantly upset with his coaches. And Jason Garrett does not have a contract next year, and he's not getting another one unless somehow the Cowboys, in the unlikely scenario, run off enough wins to win their division and make a playoff run and get into the Super Bowl. That, my friends, is not going to happen with this coaching staff.
And that's the only thing saving Jason Garrett's job. It's coming, because coming into the season, oh, man, we got Kellen Moore. Okay, he's going to be the OC, and Jason Garrett, he's going to be clapping them hands, and, and everything's going to be all right. And they was putting up points by the chunks and beating people in convincing fashion. And then the past couple games, he's passed for 80+ yards, and he snuck into MVP consideration. And now it's just like, well, back to where we're at one more time. But man, that's bad for such a franchise, story franchise of the Dallas Cowboys. But
and so good for the Patriots because they keep plugging along, and they still, to me, they didn't look as. I mean, I wasn't blown away, impressed with how they played on Sunday. That was a not fair game to evaluate because it was a rainy mess. It was hard for Brady to look his best, and I thought the Cowboys played them pretty tough for the most part, other than not being able to get the ball in the end zone. But defensively, they played them pretty well. But the Patriots, to me, still seem like they're the team to beat in the AFC. I know the Ravens are right there with them, but the Patriots only need to win a couple more games to secure home field advantage. And, so I still like the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl. I may be in the minority in that, but I got to believe that. Hey, Eddie, let's move on from this topic, man. I'm sure not everybody wants to just listen to me rant and rave about the Cowboys for the whole hour here. So let's take me somewhere else, my brother.
Well, to our listeners, when the original idea for the SportsBros podcast came about, it was for Scottie D to rant and rave. He has a platform to rant and rave, but I'm pretty sure your sentiments can be felt all through Cowboy Nation as well, too, and all through people that have been watching football and been watching these Cowboys the past 25 years, and it's just at the point where it's like, what in the hell is going on? But with that being said, we're going to move right along. Nothing too exciting in the world of NFL. Like I said earlier, the Buffalo Bills are freaking 8-3, like under the radar sneaker. They're 8-3. Now the Raiders, they got stomped by the New York Jets. You thought it was going to win?
Wow, what a setback there, huh?
Yeah, and they beat them big too. So I'm over here looking at the AFC side of things. I don't have the wild card standings up. So we got the Raiders let's look at. Okay, we got the Raiders 6-5. In the hunt, we got the Colts and the Titans at 6-5, and then we have
the
Steelers
Colts
at
didn't
6.
Look good to me the other night either on that Thursday game.
I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what's going on.
It's the Patriots, it's the Ravens, and I'm not ready to completely give up on the Chiefs yet. I still think the Chiefs are going to pull things together and be a threat in the playoffs. But I mean, other than that, in the AFC, I just, I just don't feel like there's much to threaten. I know the Bills are good right now, but I just don't think they're next level good. I think they're having a nice season.
Yep.
Hopefully they go down on Thursday to the Dallas Cowboys. But
Turkey Day game,
Bills at Dallas. But in the AFC, Baltimore looks at this point, I guess they have to be considered the biggest threat to the Patriots, and in many people's eyes, they're the favorites in the AFC. But guys, there's still all of December left, and a week and a half in November, 2 games left in November. So, yeah, still got a lot to decide here in this last little stretch here. So, you never know when an injury comes in and changes the complexion of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we go, man. We're ready for this final stretch run.
The stretch run, and there's still a chance that the Bengals go 0-16. There are the losers of 11 straight.
Yeah, they are.
Oh boy, I just might be right, man. We might, for the first time in a long time, not a long time, but the first time this close to have like 2 0-16 teams, because we had the Browns a few years ago, and from the looks of it, Ohio may be the first state to have the likelihood to have two 0-16 teams in different seasons. But close by, it's just wow.
And old Joe Burrow from LSU, he's looking to go from Bayou Bengal to Cincinnati Bengal. I'm thinking, I mean, he's got to be the number one pick for them next year, right? I mean, you would assume so. But, and the Bengals are stating their case, man. Coming into the season, I was sure that Miami was going to be that team that was going to end up with the number one pick, but I somehow missed out on the Bengals' futility. They're missing Marvin Lewis. They need Marvin Lewis to lead them back to mediocrity.
I've been out of high school at 16, 17 years, and that's about as long as Marvin Lewis has been coaching.
Yeah.
I remember I told somebody at work, I said, hey man, you know what? Marvin Lewis might have a job. Marvin Lewis might have some dirt on somebody.
Yeah.
He might have some nudes on somebody. I'm just trying to figure out, how can you be around that long and be like the mayor of Mediocrityville, USA?
It's funny, Eddie, but you hear Marvin Lewis and Jason Garrett both described the same way, as being just generally nice guys. People like them because they're just nice. And I guess the ownership in both cases just didn't want to cut ties with their nice guy. The Bengals wasted a lot of time with Marvin Lewis. I mean, he should have been gone years ago. And I have a lot of respect for him, because I think he was a really good guy and knew football. But some guys just aren't meant to be the leader of NFL franchises. And
no,
sometimes you have to go through the growing pains to figure that out.
I mean, like from Carson Palmer to Andy Dalton, to H.O.C, to T.O. at one point. Poor Tyler Eifert, he can't stay healthy. They've had Leon Hall on defense, Carvers Bay High School product, Robert Gathers. They had him on defense. They've been pretty stout on defense. Ray Malaluga. I don't know, man. And the thing about that division is they've had a chance to really make noise in that division, because the Browns have just been historically bad. But the shoe is dropped, and I guess the shoe is on the other foot. So we'll see. Like you said, man, Joe Burrows might be a Bayou Bengal to playing at Paul Brown Stadium, at the stadium by the lake.
Yeah, feels like that's where we're headed.
Yep, that's that. And that's that for the Week 12 NFL recap. Moving right along to college football, Week 13. Scottie D, it's like this. We're only going to talk about teams 1 through 4 and what happened with Oregon, because everything else is pretty much set in stone at this point. So here we go. LSU beats the brakes off of Arkansas 56-20. Ohio State, with Chase Young back, they defeat number 12 Penn State 28-17. UGA ekes one out against Texas A&M 19-13. Clemson on the bye week, and Oregon loses to Arizona State. Now, the reason we're talking about that score is because Oregon, in the latest college football poll rankings, they are at number 6, and Alabama is at number 5. So we got a 2-loss Oregon team and a 1-loss Alabama team. Scottie D, I said earlier, you know what? It might be over for Alabama, but then you told me to pump my brakes, and tell our listeners why you told me to pump my brakes.
Well, actually, B Live kind of mentioned this a few weeks ago. He actually, was peeking into this scenario pretty early about how if Georgia loses, they're going to have 2 losses. They're going to be out of that top 4. And Oregon, with that loss, is not going to get any love to be able to jump over Alabama. Alabama's probably going to end up sliding right back up into that number 4 spot. The way it's looking right now, if everything holds as expected, it looks like it's probably going to, we're probably going to have LSU is going to finish at number 1, and then you're going to probably have Ohio State and Clemson battling it out at number 2, and probably Alabama will get another crack at LSU, which I wouldn't hate seeing any of those games, to be honest with you. I don't know if Utah moves up. I don't think the voters are going to push them above Alabama. I just don't think they're going to get that kind of love to knock out another SEC team like that, especially not Bama. So, you know, with the SEC championship setting up, coming our way, I got to believe that's the way it's going to look. But having said that, Alabama hasn't beat Auburn yet, and Auburn is not a pushover this year. They've had a couple losses, but that's a good team. So that's going to be, in my eyes, that's the game of the week to watch next week on rivalry weekend, or this coming Saturday on rivalry weekend. And Ohio State, they handled Penn State pretty handily, and I'm giving them credit for being really legit after that one. It didn't look like Penn State was really a threat. Penn State, you know, they cut the lead. They cut into it. They went from down 21-0 to 21-17, and then they didn't get any closer. But boy, Ohio State and Clemson would be a nice game. I have to say.
Yep, that would be right up B-Live's alley, because if you have been watching this series of videos, Why Hoppin' Wednesdays, he had this whole spiel about Ohio State trademarking the Ohio State, and it would probably bring him great joy to see that Clemson Ohio State matchup. I think it would be a good matchup.
But is there any chance? What? Oh man, what if Michigan beats Ohio State? That would put everything into a wild scramble in that top 4. And what if South Carolina beats Clemson? How'd you like that one, Eddy Kool? Would that do your heart good?
You know, that would make me smile. I mean, beating Georgia made me grin. Beating Clemson will make me smile, even though we won't be bowl eligible. But, you know, hey, I can say, you know what? At least we beat 2 rivals. At least we beat a conference rival and a state rival. So, I'll be happy as a clam with that one. I'll be happy. It would be nice if we could have won some more games. But, you know, sometimes you got to take what's given to you and be happy.
Oh, man, that would just be a serious mix-up if Clemson and Ohio State, if either one of them would lose this coming Saturday. I mean, because other than that, this is pretty much a piece of cake for the committee to decide on this stuff. But if those teams lose, good Lord, this is going to make things interesting. So I guess I'm jumping the gun by setting up the top 4 playoff already, because we still got some games to go here. We still got conference championships and rivalry weekend to deal with. So that's going to be fun the next couple weeks to see how this pans out.
You're right. It will be fun. I mean, just think like a 1-loss Ohio State, a 1-loss Clemson, and that. And you know what? That that will play into whose favor would it play into? That will probably play into Alabama's favor, because now we'll have we're in the worlds of what if and hypotheticals. We would have a 1-loss Clemson team, and then we have Georgia. That would be 2 teams that lost to South Carolina.
Yeah.
And then Alabama might have a shot to come in, and then something. I'm just saying, I'm over here looking. I'm like, see, you got Utah and Oregon here. I mean, you know, you might got a few teams on the outside looking in. Hey, it ain't over yet. With a couple weeks left, like you said, rivalry week, and also the conference championship. It's gonna be good. Gonna be great.
Sadly, Pitt will not be making it into the top 4. So.
The Fighting Pat Nord.
I've resigned the fact that the Pitt Panthers are not going to win the national championship this year. So I am ready to move on from that. So there's that, Eddy Kool.
Yep, and there is that. Oh, by the way, Appalachian State, a small school out of Boone in North Carolina. They are number 24, and their record is 10-1. Wow. Go figure, right?
They get it done every year, man. They're good year in and year out. Nice program up there.
Yeah, man, they're pretty consistent, man. Before they made the leap to the majors, you know, they were raising hell on the FCS, man, in Division 1A or whatever you want to call it. 1AA, man. They were doing pretty good, man. So from the looks of it, man, they're staying the course, man. Because, you know, sometimes when teams make that transition, it's not always good. It's bad for some teams. Like, hey, go back to where you came from. So, and the first time forever, Scott, another thing I noticed in college football, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, never mind. Here we go. We got Notre Dame still being ranked, and somebody fell out for the first time in forever. But hey, kind of don't matter now. We're here now. And with that being said, that is it for the Week 13 college football recap and a glimpse into the crystal ball of what could be during the college football playoffs.
And now, our favorite part of the show, the choices of the voices.
And thank you once again to the lovely and wonderful Miss Button for introducing our favorite section of the show, the choices of the voices. She's never told a lie, and she's 100% honest about the choices of the voices being our favorite portion of the show. Scottie D, man, I mean, it was loaded, man. Like, as soon as you posted the question, I think the first one was to respond was Terrible Pete Talansky, and he didn't even wait for the thread. He's like, "Look, I gotta tell you mine right now."
Yeah.
He took a jab at you in Terrible Pete fashion, but it is what it is. So, Scottie D, tell the listeners what the question was for the choices of the voices.
Well, we were countering our question from the week before, which was the week before we asked what your Mount Rushmore was from your favorite NFL team. So this past week, we switched it up and flipped to your bottom feeding four. Now, I guess when I put the question on Facebook, I must not have made it quite clear because a few of our listeners were answering basically just general NFL draft busts. But we were actually looking for your four players on your team, your favorite NFL team that were either players or coaches that were either really terrible or didn't live up to expectations or just kind of made you crazy and just wanted them off your team. And it did elicit some nice responses there. So thank you guys for checking in with us, and let's see what you said.
Oh boy, we greatly appreciate it. And leading off, as we said before, spoiler alert, terrible Pete Talansky. Pete, he's not a terrible person. I just don't know the name Terrible Pete. It just flows well together, and he's cool with it. As long as he's cool with it, I'm cool. I'm cool saying it because I ain't got no problem doing that. All right, he said Scott Donnelly, and he added you, like the kid said, he came at you, bro. He said, so here's the bottom four, the bottom of the barrel, yes, for the New York Football Giants. Number 1, Ray Handley. Number 2, Ron Dane, ouch. Number 3, Clint Centum. And number 4, William Joseph.
Yeah, I don't know that much about all those guys. I know that Ron Dane was like the beast of college football, and he broke Ricky Williams' record. I think like just a year or two after Ricky Williams did it for rushing yards in a season, and just was never quite the dominant guy in the NFL. And Ray Handley, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the coach that replaced Bill Parcells, and that's some big shoes to fill, but I think he kind of ran them into the ground and had that was toward the end of Phil Simms as their starting quarterback, and there was some stuff going on there. I don't remember all the specifics of that, but I remember on his last game, he was running off the field, and one of the announcers on the ESPN said he had such a bad year they're making him run home or something to that effect.
Wow!
It was obvious that this dude was not coming back as things got so bad with Ray Handley. I just kind of remember that being a funny comment on one of the guys. I think it actually was Berman on ESPN that made the comment, but yeah, so there was some frustration level there for the Giants with a couple of those guys. I can see that.
Yeah, but I was just looking up Clint Centum and William Joseph. They both played on the defensive side of the ball, and from the looks of what Terrible Pete says about his Giants, they really didn't do much. Like you said, Ron Dane, man, he was didn't he win the Heisman?
He did.
Yeah, hey man, sometimes that goes to show, man. Sometimes that Heisman transition does not bode well. I mean, in the NFL, because like I told, matter of fact, I was at it off topic real quick. If you saw on the SportsBros podcast page, I hung out with Abe Ortiz, a fan of the show, and also another fan of the show, Corey Turner. Went to the Cleveland State game. Cleveland State versus the Florida International. Cleveland State versus Florida International. And like the level of competition, you can tell is different. Like what in the world's going on? By like they blew them out like 103-53. And I was like, yeah, you can definitely tell. There's a difference when it comes to competition. A big difference. I'm like, you know what? Hey, it was good to get out of the house on a Tuesday night. So, thanks, fellas, for taking me to the game. In the words of the Almighty Be Live, but I digress. Yep. And speaking of Abraham Ortiz, shout out nephew. What's going on with your brother? He said, and this is Browns related, Trent Richardson, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Whedon, and Braylon Edwards. Now, the thing about Abraham Ortiz, he's an Ohio State fan. And, of course, this is I hate Michigan week if you are an Ohio State Buckeye fan. And he said, you know what, mainly because Braylon Edwards, because he went to Michigan. I had to edit out what he said. But, yeah, when he bleeds maize and blue, so therefore he don't want to undo him. So there we go. Trent Richardson, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Whedon, and Braylon Edwards. I thought Trent Richardson was going to be good because, he did some big things in Alabama.
So did I.
Yeah, and, I got him. Matter of fact, I think it was the year, I forgot which year it was, but his rookie year, he had like 923 yards on the ground, and he was catching the ball out the backfield, and he scored 7 touchdowns, and he was pretty good. But, man, that following year, you want to talk about a drop-off. Dropped off so much you wound up on the coast, by week 2. Crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy, too. And I remember when they traded him to the Colts. They traded him after only, 2 seasons or something like that. He wasn't long, for Cleveland. And I think they got one number 1 draft pick, and I think that was all they got. I feel like that was kind of how that went down. And I remember thinking, man, they really undervalued that. And I talked to a guy who works with NFL players. He's an agent that lives here in North Myrtle Beach. And he said, that's a bargain for that guy. And I said, are you crazy? Richardson's good. And he said, from what I hear about this guy behind closed doors, this is it's a good move for Cleveland to get rid of him and get a number 1 pick. So, and man, that ended up being right. That ended up, he ended up being correct on that, because that guy just never got anywhere, and he did look like a beast in college, man. I was really underwhelmed by his career. As far as the Cleveland guy, Cleveland, I feel bad. Man. They got a lot to choose from. I mean, he whittled it down to was it Brandon Whedon, and who was the other?
Yeah.
Who was the other one?
Deshaun Kaiser. They should have never picked.
I mean, you could throw Tim Couch, Johnny Football. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks in Cleveland that you could go to. So, interesting choice. Brandon Whedon, another one that was a wasted 1st-round draft pick that looked like he was going to be a nice quarterback coming in, and yeah. But I understand the frustration with Braylon Edwards, because he came from the enemy. And didn't help you, didn't pan out. So good choices there, man. Good call on those.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, maybe Braylon had a few good seasons, and then he just petered out. I'm like, it's nuts. And Deshaun Kaiser, what the hell are they thinking?
I think that my nephew has his jersey, and he wore it one time, and then he was embarrassed that he was wearing it.
Tell him to burn it at this point.
Oh, it was so funny. We went out to dinner, and he didn't want to take his jacket off. And I said, why'd you wear the thing anyway? He wanted a Deshaun Kaiser jersey.
Like, son, if that's the case, we'll just get you a Quebec Nordiques t-shirt and we'll just get you that and just anything with that. Yep. So, Trent Richardson, Deshaun Kaiser, Brandon Whedon is somebody used to be a quarterback for your Cowboys. Yeah. One of my friends used to call Brandon Whedon the Weed Man.
Yeah.
All right, man. Moving right along from that. Good answers, Abe. Good answers. We got our one and only Matty Ice, Martin Tracy. All right, here we go. He gave us a long-winded explanation. I don't mind reading it because, explanations, because sometimes some of these decisions, they need explanations. So here you go. Martin Tracy said, Kenneth Sims, the first overall pick in the 1982 draft. He played for a bunch of years but never lived up to the hype. Mike Ruth, a 42nd pick and Outland Trophy winner, 2 years pro, total bust. Lawrence Maroney. I remember him being a big deal coming out of college too.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a big deal. First round pick, 21st. He hung around but didn't do much. Tony Eason, never liked him. Although he did take the pass to the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl Chicago Massacre. Not really all his fault, but I was a Steve Grogan fan then. Good old Steve Grogan. So let's see. We got Mike Ruth. These are Patriots, in case not paying attention, because it took me a while to put together. Mike Ruth, Lawrence Maroney, Tony Eason, and Kenneth Sims.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that Mike Ruth that Maddie had mentioned there, but that guy he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in December of 2017. So, and he won the Outland Trophy. So for him to play only 2 years, that had to have been a major disappointment for the Patriots, because they drafted him in 1986. That was the Super Bowl year. That was the year that the Patriots went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Bears. And I think so. I want to say that was the year.
It was 85.
85. Okay, so my point is the Patriots were a good enough team to make it to the Super Bowl during that era. So they were, they're probably thinking they're getting a really, really good player here. We're going to build with this guy, and he was gone in 2 years, and I guess he played his final couple years for the World League of American Football, which doesn't even exist anymore either. So, yeah, that was an interesting one. I had not heard of him. I remember Tony Eason, because the Patriots did make the Super Bowl with him that year. But boy, did he get beat up in that Super Bowl! And I think the Patriots scored one touchdown, and Grogan was the guy that ended up coming off the bench and scoring that for him. But
oh yeah, they beat him up. They beat him up.
Yeah, and Tony Eason, I don't think was ever really the same after that season. He didn't flourish. He kind of faded off after that season. That was kind of it for him.
It's kind of you realize what's going on. You know what? I'm gone. I've outstayed my welcome. This ain't working out. Bye-bye. Yeah. So there we go. And Lawrence Maroney, man, he was another one of those guys. Like, man, he's gonna be a big deal. And like a couple years in, it was like here today, gone tomorrow, and that was it for Lawrence Maroney. I mean, it was quick, really quick, like quicker than a hiccup, man.
That seems to happen with Patriots running backs. None of them. They seem to get good ones that come and go, but none that have longevity.
I'm just trying to figure out how long Sonny Michel is going to stay around, because Sonny Michel was part of that UGA backfield where there was Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb, and Todd Gurley. So that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with him. But like you say, man, the term New England Patriots 1,000-yard running back, you rarely even hear it. Matter of fact, I'm going to look up something a little later, man. The New England Patriots all-time leading rushers for the franchise. You know what I'm saying? It might be a real short list.
Yeah, I want to say like Craig James might be up in there, and maybe Corey Dillon. He had a good run there for a few years, but they don't have a history of having like a lot of long-term running. Even Curtis Martin was there for a few years and moved on to the Jets. But they just don't have a ton of history with a great running back.
Okay, I think I've seen some. I don't know how true it is. The all-time leading career Patriots leading rusher, Sam Cunningham. Sam Cunningham. Yep. With 1,300 attempts, 5,453 yards, and 43 touchdowns. Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah.
I think he was Randall Cunningham's uncle, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, that good old Cunningham pedigree. Run a ball, throw a ball, kick a ball, 90 miles, and yeah. Speaking of talents, good God, Randall Cunningham. Imagine Randall playing in today's game. He was little, he was skinny, but just imagine playing to him in today's NFL with that cannon he got for an arm.
Well, he's like 50-something, so I think he'd have a hard time.
Yeah, he just might. He might. You know what? I'm sitting there. I'm tired of getting beat up. I'm good. I'm fine. My last run was with the Vikings, and that's it. He's like, I'm not like Ric Flair. I don't have more run left in me. That's it. Moving right along, we got Uncle Max. What's going on, Uncle Max? Green Bay Packers fan extraordinaire. All right, he said Dom Capers, number one, because he cost the Packers too many games in the fourth quarter when they had the league by coaching not to lose with his soft zone bend but don't break defense. Can't do that. He said it also cost him a couple of Super Bowl appearances as well, too. Number two, Tony Mandarich. And he says, I already ranted about this guy. Number three, Martellus Bennett. He stopped being a team player and whined and cried after Aaron Rodgers was injured for the season, and he achieved a release from the Packers. And number four, Poor Brett Hundley, the worst quarterback I've ever seen play. He couldn't read defenses, couldn't follow progressions, couldn't step up in the pocket, and don't get me started on the sacks. This man went down more than a hooker at a naval base.
Wow. Uncle Max. With a quip. I like it.
Oh, man. Uncle Max bringing the fire and the flame. Yeah. Uncle Max, that is very hard to argue against, man. You have some very valid reasons. I can understand Dom Capers because he was the first coach of the Carolina Panthers. I mean, he gave us some success, and then he got the hell up out of Carolina. He got the hell up out of Charlotte. And then you opined about Tony Mandarich. You know, that's a legitimate, like a bust of all busts.
Let me read this to you. In the 1989 NFL draft, here are the top 5 picks. Okay. Cowboys take Troy Aikman.
Ooh.
So he's off the board. Green Bay, number 2, takes Tony Mandarich. Number 3, the Lions take Barry Sanders. Number 4, the Chiefs take Derek Thomas. And number 5, the Falcons take Deion Sanders. So out of the top 5 picks, 4 of them went to the Hall of Fame, and the Packers could have had 3 of those guys. Tony Mandarich, boy, he looked like a monster among men when he was in college, man. And I think he was a steroid product, if I remember correct. I just remember him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the title "The Incredible Bulk," and everyone thought this guy's going to be the best lineman ever. He was strong and powerful, and you know, he was fast for a big guy, and I think he even wanted to fight Mike Tyson at one point. He was just like he was like an offensive version of Brian Bosworth. He was just like a lightning bolt that, you know, just he was big. I think he was 6'6". He was 6'6", 330 coming in, and yeah, man, he was going to be it, and he lasted 3 years in Green Bay.
Yeah, 3 years in Green Bay, and went to the Colts.
He ended up having a respectable couple years with the Colts, but he was never the dominant lineman that everybody was, you know, dreaming of when he came out.
Yeah, I guess that was it. You know, if we need to protect the quarterback, we need to go ahead and try to shore up this here offensive line, and we're gonna get the best thing out there. And then it turned out to be, it just turned out to be bad, just bad. I'm seeing something on the computer now. It says Mike Tyson versus the Incredible Bulk, nearly 30 years ago, the fight that never was.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even remember Tony Mandarich at this point. Like, especially the younger generation, they don't even know who that is. They all know who Mike Tyson is, but that's probably meaningless to them at this point. So good choices there, Uncle Max.
Wow, poor Tony Mandarich. Like you said, he did wind up having a pretty respectable career for the Colts. You know, started a bunch of games, and it was just bad, man. Bad. Big size, big. You know, hype. It was hype. You had a hype train behind him, and then the train just fell off the rails, literally and figuratively. All right, moving right along, we got Trey Dizzle, Trey Duke. How about them Cowboys? You might love this. You might love this one.
Here we go.
I even responded to his last question because I got quite a chuckle out of it. I often wonder, like, why is this guy named that? Number 1, Dave Campo.
Whoa.
Number 2, Quincy Carter.
Bleh.
Number 3, Roy Williams, the wide receiver. And number 4, Chan Gailey. And he says, why the hell was a white guy named Chan anyway? And I've done my research. Chan is short for Chandler.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was like, I wanted to say that too. I was like, he don't look. Let me look. And I was like, oh, okay, Chandler. Okay, he's Chandler, but he wanted to be called Chan. I got you.
So Chan Gailey, he's not a very memorable figure in Cowboys history. He was essentially the guy that was brought in to clean up the Barry Switzer mess when Barry Switzer just had things out of control, and Chan Gailey came in, and I want to say that his first year they went 10-6 and went to the playoffs, and I think they went 8-8 the second year, and then he was gone. And Jerry Jones, I have heard in years since that Jerry Jones regretted parting ways with Chan Gailey so quickly, and unfortunately, I think that has been part of the reason why Garrett has lasted so long, because he didn't want to give up so quickly on a coach. But Gailey, his tenure was so short. It just wasn't overwhelming, and that was towards the end of Troy Aikman's career. He was coming down the stretch, and he might have even been coaching. Don't quote me on this. Or he may have been there whenever Michael Irvin got injured and his career ended. But it was kind of in that little era. And then the following year, he was replaced by Dave Campo, and that is the dark days of Cowboy history right there. Dave Campo went 5-11 all 3 years as the coach. So that was a nightmare. Trey, you pick Quincy Carter, and that one is right on the money. And to show you how good of a coach Bill Parcells was, Quincy Carter was the quarterback of the Cowboys when they went to the playoffs the first year that Parcells was coach. So that to me, that just shows how good of a coach Parcells was. Quincy Carter was a nightmare situation. He was not smart. He was not accurate with his throws. He was a fast athlete. He was a good athlete, but he was a disaster. And after that playoff appearance, Parcells waived him in training camp the next year. He cut him. So his career was done. I'll counter that since we're on the subject, and I'll throw some of mine out there. Quincy Carter, I'm just going to go ahead and keep it on the list, and I'm going to add a couple other names. I actually agree with some of Trey's guys, but just to give you some different names. Roy Williams, but I'm going to go Roy Williams as safety. I don't know if you remember him, Eddy Kool, but he was a beast the first couple years. He was a safety for the Cowboys, and he was laying people out, and he horse-collared T.O. and broke his leg, and that's why the horse-collar rule came about because of him. But on a Monday Night Football game against Washington, the Cowboys were leading 13-0 late in the fourth quarter, and twice Roy Williams got torched on bombs from Mark Brunell, and I can't remember who they were, but bottom line was that opened a can of worms because from then on, other teams just started throwing deep on Roy Williams, and he would always just get burned back there. And that was essentially the end of his career in Dallas whenever Washington exposed him as a terrible deep cover guy. Then there was a guy named Dwayne Goodrich, who the Cowboys drafted. He was their first pick, but in the second round, and I believe it was 2000. I think he only played a couple games for the Cowboys, and then he was convicted of vehicular manslaughter in 2003. Oh boy. He was released and spent 7 years in jail. And he was supposed to be a really good cornerback coming out of Tennessee at a time that the Cowboys really needed D-backs. So he was a washout. And then there was Drew Henson.
I remember Drew Henson.
Remember him? He was a quarterback at Michigan, and him and Brady were back and forth for the starting job at Michigan. After his junior year, he decided he wasn't going to play football anymore. He went and signed a contract with the Yankees, and that didn't work out. But in the meantime, the Houston Texans took a flyer on him, threw a late 6th-round pick on him, picked him up, and then traded him his rights to the Cowboys. And I remember thinking, man, this is right when Quincy Carter got waived, that we're going to be okay because we have our next long-term quarterback on the roster, and we did, but his name was Tony Romo. But I thought that Drew Henson really looked a part of the big, strong-armed, stud quarterback, and it was just going to take a year or two to get him acclimated. And I think he only played a couple games for the Cowboys, and he was out of the league as well. So I actually think he started on Thanksgiving game 1 year, but he just wasn't. He just wasn't good. I mean, it was. Yeah, those are some of the dark days of the Cowboys. They all seem to be kind of around that time, right after Aikman. His career was winding down, and Emmitt Smith was winding down, and that was the beginning of the dark days of the Cowboys that we actually are not out of yet. And I'm done talking about the Cowboys. So let's move on. I've talked about them too much on the show. So
it's a 25-year curse. Good God.
It really is.
All right, so I'm reading about Drew Henson. In 2005, he had a poor training camp, and he landed 3rd on the depth chart behind Drew Bledsoe and you named him, Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Now, who would have thought out of the 3, Tony Romo would have been like the man in Dallas?
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, you think about quarterbacks for the Cowboys, you think about Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, and then Tony Romo.
Yeah.
And Don Meredith, too, right?
Don Meredith. And we actually had a decent quarterback by the name of Danny White that took over after Staubach.
Yep, Danny White.
But he he could never win a championship game. He went to a couple and couldn't win them. But yeah. And now Dak Prescott following in the footsteps.
Huh.
Is that everybody? Did we get all those answers?
We got some more, man. I'll take this thing. This thing was action packed. Let's see. That was Trey Dizzle. Why the hell was a white guy named Chan anyway?
Right.
That's the best one. We got a couple more, including our very own Almighty B Live, who's on that job, on that 9 to 5, on that grind, making that paper. All right, so here we go. We have Clifton Lewis. What's going on, Clifton Lewis? He's a mighty, mighty, mighty Miami Dolphins fan, and I'm pretty sure he's happy that his team won't have the distinction of going undefeated and then defeated through the whole entire season. Whew, wipes sweat from the brow.
Right.
All right. Number one, Ryan Tannehill, for no pocket presence and never taking charge like a quarterback should. Number two, Nick Saban, for the way he left. For the way he left. And dispersing some of our defensive talent. Number three, Ted Ginn Jr. Didn't live up to the potential for us that he's shown for other teams. Number four, Deion Jordan, for just being a total and complete bust, especially the way the Dolphins moved up in the draft to get him and never playing him down, hardly because of suspensions. So we got Ryan Tannehill, Nick Saban, Ted Ginn, and Deion Jordan.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit real quick there on Nick Saban for how great a college football coach he is. And I would actually go as far as to say the number one on the list of all-time college football head coaches. Just not good in the NFL. Just a couple seasons of futility. That did not work out well.
Nope, that did not work well.
It was a bad way that he left it and everything. Oh man, it was just not good.
He left a mess, man. He left an absolute mess. Okay, then who else do we have here? Ryan Tannehill, who's still employed. He's the starter for the Tennessee Titans, and he took over Marcus Mariota. And I don't know, man. He's getting the job done, so to speak, in damn Tennessee. So Mariota's days might be numbered. And let's see, Ted Ginn Jr., who also played for my Carolina Panthers. The knock on Ted Ginn was he was a speedster, but he couldn't catch a cold naked in Alaska.
Yeah. He was he's the deep threat guy, but never really like the go-to guy.
Yeah, because he was a part of that Carolina Panthers wide receiving core, as I like to call the no-name core, who went to the Super Bowl, because that year you had who? You had Ted Ginn, you had Philly Brown, and I don't even remember the other fella. I really don't. I really, really don't. And Deion Jordan, who's a defensive end, he now plays. He's still employed. So out of Clifton's list, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nick Saban turned out to be the greatest college coach of. Nick Saban turned out to be the greatest college coach of all time. Ryan Tannehill has a job still. Deion Jordan, who played from 2013 to 2016 for the Dolphins, and from 17 to 18 for the Seattle Seahawks. Well, he ain't got a job no more. And then Ted Ginn Jr. Need for speed, but hands of cement.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's that for the Dolphins, man. That's a good list. That's a good list, Cliff. A very, very good list. All right, next up we got Javier from the Chucktown, Charleston, South Carolina. What's going on, brother? These next, spoiler alert, these next three are Carolina Panthers related. So here we go. All right, number one, Jimmy Clausen. Number two, Dwayne Jarrett. Number three, Everett Brown. And number four, Jeff Otah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, Jimmy Clausen, I was like, okay, it's Casey's little brother. I always wondered why Casey never turned pro. Absolutely bothered me, because I think Casey was the better of the Clausen brothers at quarterback. But Jimmy was at, Notre Dame doing his thing and making noise. And I guess we're like, hey, there's our quarterback of the future. And then he pooed it to bed too. Dwayne Jarrett continues the lineage of Carolina drafting horrible wide receivers. If you exclude, I don't want to say the jury's still out for DJ Moore, because I think DJ Moore in year number 2 has solidified his case. because you look at some of the great wide receivers in the all-time history of the Carolina Panthers. You have Steve Smith, Musa Muhammad, and before it's all said and done, if he stays in Carolina, DJ Bourne may be the man too. But boy, we have a Mount Rushmore of horrible wide receivers. Everett Brown was a defensive end. If I'm not mistaken, he may have come from Florida State. I'll check back on that shortly. And Jeff Otah was supposed to be the next big thing as far as the defensive lineman goes, but as you can see, he wound up making obvious bottom feeding, bottom of the barrel, not so Mount Rushmore lists. All right, moving right along, we got Paul Odom, also a Carolina Panthers fan. He selected Jimmy Clausen, also Dwayne Jarrett, Mike Holding Rimmers, and Ray Caruth. We know why about Ray's little crazy ass. Mike Rimmers, he was serviceable, but damn, he just inside the pass, stop hugging him, Mike. What the hell are you doing? I already talked about Dwayne Jarrett. And we'll move right along to our coach, the almighty B-Live. He selected Ray Caruth, Kerry Collins, Greg Hardy, and once again, Mike Rimmers. Greg Hardy also played for your Cowboys, too, for a little bit, Scottie D. And
yeah, what a shame with him too, because he had a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm. He had a lot of talent, man. Because I'm like, man, we got Greg Hardy. I'm like, he just came out of nowhere, and he led the he had double-digit sacks one year, but he decided he wanted to throw his girlfriend on a bed of firearms, and then it all fell apart after that. And then the Dallas experiment happened, and so now he's MMA. He's fighting, and he's all right. He's okay. So yeah, that's it. And so let's see. Yep, and that's it. That's a very spirited list of choice of the voices. And so, Scottie D, you did a pine on right? Your bottom four?
Yeah, I'm already in.
Okay.
Let's see what you
He's
got.
in there. All right, here comes me, Eddy Kool. All right, so check it out. A lot of players have come and gone throughout Carolina, and there's a few I say to myself, what are you doing? Why are you here? Go somewhere else. You could be the man somewhere else, but you don't need to be the man here. Looking at my list, it goes a little something like this. Chris Winkie. He was damn near 49 years old when we drafted him any damn way.
All right. Let's be careful with the age thing here. I'm about to have a birthday here, so let's move along from the age thing. Back off the age.
Okay. I'm sorry, Scotty. I didn't mean to do that to you. But Chris Winkie, he was a Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State University. Before that, he spent the early portion of the 90s playing baseball. That didn't work out, so he went to school and got him a job at Florida State being a quarterback, and then wound up being a draft pick, and he never really panned out. You want to talk about the dark days of the Carolina Panthers? Oh, boy, here we come. The aforementioned Dwayne Jarrett. I ain't got to say nothing else. I've already said it. Deshaun Foster. He was a running back. He came from UCLA. I was never one on the Deshaun Foster train. It would be like, they give him the ball, he would get 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and it was just, I just wasn't like, what are you doing? Like, go away, go. Luckily, my wish got granted, and he wound up playing for the 49ers. And Drew Carter, another one of those UCLA, Southern Cal wide receiver guys, didn't amount to be nothing. And I was elated to see him leave. So there's my list. Chris Winkie, Dwayne Jarrett, Deshaun Foster, and Drew Carter at the bottom of the barrel. There were a few honorable mentions, but these guys just were the first ones to come to mind. Like, you guys got to get the hell up out of here. Get the hell up out of here. So, shout out to Terrible Pete, Abraham Ortiz, Matty Ice, Uncle Max, Trey Dizzle, Clifton Lewis, Hobby from the Chucktown, Paul Odom, and the almighty B-Live for their contributions to this week's Choices of the Voices discussion topic. Scottie D, what is next week's question?
All right, well, next week, this week we're just going to do something along the theme of the week. It'll actually be past time when we discuss next week. But I'm just going to ask you guys, what are some of your favorite Thanksgiving sports-related memories? It could be something you watched on TV. It could be a Cowboy game, a Lions game. It could be you playing football in the yard with your buddies. If you had like a a turkey bowl or something you guys used to do when you were kids. So just general Thanksgiving sports memories. That's all we're going for this week. Should be a little bit easier because I tell you what, it was hard coming up with top 4 and bottom 4 these last couple weeks. It was a lot of fun to do it, but so this week we're just looking for your Thanksgiving memories, and we appreciate you guys as always for taking the time to play along with us on our Choices of the Voices segment.
Yep, and we greatly appreciate it. Moving right along. Hey, it's almost that time of the show. Pepper, you know how we do it. 3 topics, rapid fire style. I got my 3. Scott, you got your 3. And once again, we're playing 2-man catch, and hopefully no one gets hit in the head because, we're coordinated like that. Anyways, I'll go first. My first pepper point is a somber one. Rest in peace to former Vikings kicker Fred Cox. Why am I highlighting him in the pepper section? Is because, little known fact, he was the co-creator of the Nerf football. Yeah. So the next time you're in the front yard and you're throwing around a Nerf football, be it with a rocket attached to the end of it, or just throw anything Nerf, just remember that, hey, Fred Cox had something to do with Nerf football. And he died at the age of 80 years old. So thank you for your contribution to backyard sports, Fred Cox, and may you forever rest in power. Over to you, Scottie D.
And also thank you because I now have a trivia question coming up at one of my trivia locations here.
Hey.
All right. Eddy Kool, I didn't tell you I was going to talk about this because I wasn't sure if I was going to or not. But this is kind of a touchy subject that I want to explain something to our listeners. So the last couple weeks, we have completely glossed over the situation of Colin Kaepernick getting a tryout with the NFL and the whole situation where he moved his workout to another location. When Eddy and I and B-Live started to do the show, one of the first conversations we had was we did not want to cover topics that were going to be divisive as far as race or politics or anything that's overly controversial that was outside of the realm of sports. Stephen A. Smith was critical of Colin Kaepernick after being a supporter of his a long time, and he took a lot of heat for it, to the point that last week Terrell Owens went on his show and told him that Max Kellerman was more black than you are sometimes.
Wow, yeah. I heard that, and I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be good.
Now, I did not see that segment live, but it just so happened that later on that afternoon, I was driving to work, and I heard Stephen A. Smith's show, and that was the opening segment. He was talking about that, and he was really upset to the point that, to me, I could almost hear more hurt in his voice than the obvious anger because of Terrell Owens calling him out the way he did. And I just wanted to say this. While Stephen A. Smith all week last week was going back with this controversy and the arguments, we on the SportsBros podcast were talking about our Mount Rushmore of sports. We were talking about, and we were having a great time with it. And guys, that is why we're doing what we do, because we don't want to have that dividing kind of thing. It's one thing to argue about how great is Bill Belichick or how great was the best running backs of all time. Those are arguments that are fun. But in this day and age of political division in our country, we don't want to feed into that as far as making people choose sides and be angry with one another. All you have to do is look at Facebook and you see people posting their political posts back and forth. And it's crazy because I've never seen a Democrat sway Republican his way or vice versa because of a Facebook meme. So
right.
In this day and age of all the political unrest and the racial divide, we have a show with 2 black dudes and a white dude, and we are doing just fine talking about lighthearted subjects and just straight talking sports. And guys, that's the way we want to keep it. So just so if anybody was wondering why we didn't even mention the Colin Kaepernick situation, it's because we simply don't want to. We don't want to get into all that stuff. And Eddy, I think you probably or feel me on that subject, because this is something we wanted to do differently than other sports outlets. So back over to you.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about it. I mean, with the way it is in the world nowadays, there's enough, moaning, whining, complaining, fighting my fist hits harder than yours, or your cookie tastes better than mine, or we just like, you know what, we would like to provide a platform where people can escape from stuff like that. You know, not saying that we're trying to run from it, but we just want to create a safe space. We're here to talk about sports.
Exactly. There's enough of that on the other sports outlets. If you want to dive into the controversy of politics and Colin Kaepernick, man, go watch ESPN, because we're just not going to do it that way here.
Nope. Sorry. I mean, if you're looking for
actually,
that,
don't go watch ESPN.
No, listen to us.
Yeah.
That way you'll leave with a smile. You'll be happy, and everything will be good. And I remember somebody asked me a while back, why do you want to shy away from stuff like that? Because I want this podcast. We agreed to make this podcast different, because you look on the big outlets, and that's all they talked about for like what? Excuse me, for like what, 3 or 4 days straight?
Yeah. And it's not enjoyable to me to have all the arguments. So I'd rather go ahead and argue with Pete over some silly stuff, and argue with Trey over Tony Romo, and argue with Rodney about Don Shula being on the Mount Rushmore. That to me is more fun. That's what sports is all about. So So I just wanted to get that out there. All right, Eddie, what else you got for me, buddy, on this pepper finish?
All right, so number 2, Frank Gore. Damn it, he is at it. He is at it. A few weeks ago, he passed Jerome Bettis for, I think, 4th place in all-time carries. Now, Frank Gore passes Barry Sanders and is in sole possession of 3rd place as the all-time leading rusher in the National Football League with 15,289 yards. Now, as I was putting together the rundown, I go to different outlets and get my information. This one particular article in the Washington Post, I'm not going to give him no shine, because I think the article is blasphemous. It says, sorry, but Frank Gore does not stack up to be a Hall of Famer. Now, you got a sabermetrics dweeb talking about football, and the other room full of dweebs that don't know how to put on a jockstrap, let alone sniff one, or can tell you how to lace up a pair of boots. Listen, if you are in an all-time category in your profession, you're going to the Hall of Fame. You're going to the Hall of Fame because as of right now, he only trails behind Walter Payton and Emmitt Smith for the all-time leading rushing record.
Yep.
So how in the hell does this buffoon put together this damn article saying, well, you know, was he the man? Was he the best player in the league? No. Was he this league? No. Okay, things happen where people aren't the best in the league. But you know what Frank Gore was? Frank Gore is a model of consistency. He's posting videos at the age of 36 years old, a year younger than yours truly, who turned 37 on November the 8th, working out like he's still got a point to prove. He's bounced around a few teams. He's battled injuries. So you know what you need to do? Put some respect on Frank Gore's name. Over to you, Scottie D.
I agree with you 1,000% on that too. And there's something to be said about longevity and reliability and heart, and he has all that. So good for Frank Gore for getting to number 3. Hard to believe he passed Barry Sanders, though. That's crazy.
Like I'm saying, only trailing Emmitt Smith and Walter Payton.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, my second point is last week, Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers, for the first time in his 3-year NBA career, hit a 3-pointer.
Yay!
Good for him. And I have to announce that sadly, because that means he just passed me on the all-time list of NBA 3-pointers. So
he passed all 3 of us. We're not even here right now.
All right, Eddie, back to you on that one.
All right. Of course, you know, this goes out to the city of Cleveland, Ohio. It's been on fire as of late, mainly because of the brawl by the lake between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. I looked at the list the other day. There's over X amount of dollars in fines. A bunch of players got in trouble. You know, it's a rivalry game. What did you expect? But you know what overshadowed that at the time? That was the Browns' 2nd consecutive win. The Browns beat the Dolphins yesterday, and guess what? The Browns have won not 1, not 2, but 3 straight games. And listen
That's
to
a streak.
Yes, that's a streak, baby. 3 straight. You cannot discount that. And listen who they – all right, now here's who they beat. They beat a very good Buffalo Bills team, okay, who are now 8-3. The Pittsburgh Steelers, division rival, going through some growing pains and, dealing with injuries on a throwaway season. And also the Miami Dolphins. That brings them to 5-6. Now, I know I can hear some people saying, hey, man, don't have your hopes up. But you know what? In light of the whole helmet swinging incident, Cleveland, you got something to be happy about. Over to you, Scottie.
Yeah, man. Run the table. Run the table, go to the playoffs. Never know.
So that way our prediction might look pretty good.
Never know. All right. My final pepper point here. It's not anything too deep, but I just wanted to mention that you see Erin Andrews on TV. She's been very professional at being the sideline reporter for Fox for a lot of years. I just wanted to point out that she is 41 years old and she is still hot.
Oh boy!
So congratulations to Erin Andrews for not only being very professional at her job, but for also being very beautiful. That's all I have to say. Back to you, Eddie.
That's all I have to say about that. And that is my 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's all the pepper points. That's all the pepper points. And shout out to Scottie D's favorite NBA announcer, Doris Burke. And with that being said, that's another action-packed edition of the Sports Bros podcast. Your favorite podcast to listen to on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else podcasts are available. Just look us up, Sports Bros Podcast. We got a nice new logo. We got a whole lot of stuff going on here. You can check us out on our WordPress, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook like page. Just look up the Sports Bros Podcast, all one word. Twitter is the Sports Bros PCast, and we can't wait to interact with you. Rate, review, subscribe, and show us some love. Tell your friends, tell everybody. Matter of fact, as you said before, was it last week or the week before? We got some real great compliments from our listeners, and you know what? Keep it up. Tell everybody you know. You can reach me, Eddy Kool, the H.O.C, on Snapchat, SuperCool5000, Instagram, Cool Season, all one word. Also, the everything Sports Bros affiliated. I'm there like bad breath in the morning. Except my mouth is clean, you see. Scottie D, where can they reach you?
Always on Facebook, and keep those answers and replies coming to us on our page or my own page. Either way is good. We get them as far as the choices of the voices goes. And I do trivia in North Myrtle Beach on Monday nights at Bowie's in North Myrtle Beach, and on Wednesdays at in Barefoot Landing at Wild Wing Cafe. And you can catch me on Thanksgiving Day at Wild Wing Cafe at the buffet table. And with that said, happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Happy Thanksgiving. It's got to be at Booyah's doing the best trivia in the world.
Yes, sir.
The Money Man, Scottie D. Greg Hamilton, I'm coming for your job, player. And with that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of the Sports Bros podcast. I want to give a special shout out to my brother, Everett. Pull through, brother. I love you, no matter what. And with that being said, do something nice for yourself. And if you can, do something nice for someone else. They'll really appreciate it. This has been another episode of the Sports Bros podcast.
All roads lead to Dabo.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.